Facts.
Hello and welcome to the Wednesday edition of the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand. I guess the bonus of a long weekend is that today's already Wednesday. We're already halfway through the week, aren't we? Finally, some better news for several evacuees near the Long Lake wildfire. People living at 360 civic addresses are now being allowed to return to their properties today. It started earlier this morning. And it's being staggered, of course, so that there's not a mad rush to get into those areas. The last report puts that fire still at, I think it's 84 square kilometers with no additional structural damage, so that's all good news. While you may have anticipated yesterday's news that the 8.2% increase in residential power rates wasn't very well received, not a lot of callers here called in support of it. The Premier himself said that the news that Nova Scotians still feel betrayed by Nova Scotia Power. It's not the time for a rate increase. This is a time for NSP to show that they understand Nova Scotians and withdraw or significantly reduce the application, but went short of demanding it. We reached out to the Premier's office to have someone from the provincial government join the show today, and that request was turned down. We also reached out to Nova Scotia Power again yesterday, and that request was turned down. So we will keep our eyes on what happens next with the utility as we stare down at 8.2% increase starting next year. I think it was 4.1 next year and 4.1 the year after. With the Premier's words yesterday and the language in the media releases and on social media, I would be very surprised if he does not do something, to be honest, and I really don't know the answer. I don't know what he can do. Can he stop it? We'll have to keep our eye to that. Federal NDP announcing yesterday that they've launched their leadership contest to replace Jagmeet Singh. That will begin a process, I think, of 7 months to pick the next leader of the federal NDP. I know that the Carney cabinet is meeting in Toronto today in anticipation of a return to the House of Commons for the fall session. And Pierre Poilievre, of course, has been making campaign-style announcements as of late after winning his by-election in Alberta. So the hijinks, I'll call it, at the hijinks on the Hill will begin again very shortly. And I know that with the NDP without a leader and everybody kind of still smarting from the election, I don't think there'll be a lot of election talk this time around. But I think once the NDP get their leader in place and Mr. Poilievre gets through that leadership contest in January, then I think we might start to see that again as we are still in that, of course, minority situation in Ottawa. Mayor Fillmore is in the news today. The CBC has an article on their website that reads, the mayor of Halifax is being investigated for possibly breaking the city's code of conduct after an independent consultant decided complaints he had misled the public about governance at City Hall had merit. The article goes on to say back on July 22nd, the mayor told the CBC radio that he would welcome so-called strong mayor powers if granted by the province. Fillmore said that they're needed because the chief administrative officer holds the most power in the current municipal structure, and he reports to the CAO. Now, if you remember, many councillors, including the CAO, Cathy O'Toole, said that's just not true. The CEO reports to council, and that includes the mayor. So a couple of complaints have been lodged against the mayor under the code of conduct with regards to those comments. It's certainly something as this, can I call it a soap opera that is happening at City Hall these days, continues? Anyway, we're going to try and dig a little bit deeper into that in the coming days. Also, very quickly, HRM has now named an acting CAO. Brad Anguish will take over from Cathy O'Toole. He is currently the Commissioner of Operations and will take over the new role on Monday. O'Toole leaves officially on October the 7th. We have a busy show planned for you today. We are going to, of course, welcome Dr. John Gillis in here after 11 to answer your medical-related questions. So if you have something of concern, maybe some back-to-school questions, as we know that's happening tomorrow, you can ask the good doctor. Dr. Gillis will be here for an hour. He was cut short last week because he had to jet off to a funeral, but hopefully he'll be here for an hour today to answer all of your medical-related questions, so make sure you get them in and get them in early so you're not disappointed. And in the open hour today, which of course moves to 12 to accommodate Dr. Gillis, a very interesting study came out today from Angus Reid that reads, I'm paraphrasing, back to work, back to office. Now, Canadians seem to be pretty split, almost down the middle, when it comes to return to work, return to office. The interesting part of the study is when you break it down by sector. The nonprofits, and I think I can understand this from a nonprofit perspective, people that work in the nonprofit sector strongly support working from home. And I think I understand that because it's cheaper, right? Nonprofits are notoriously cash strapped, and working from home is a cheaper alternative. The other sector that is strongly in support of working from home and not returning to the office is the public sector. That's the provincial government, the federal government workers who well over 50% say they want to stay working from home. The contrary to that is the private sector. They want to see people return to the office. So I'm going to ask you that question today. Is it time that we just drop all of the work from home nonsense, if you call it that, and get back to the office? Or does this truly work, and does this truly make you more efficient and truly save the federal government, the provincial government, the nonprofit sector, the private sector, save you money? That's going to be part of the open hour today. I hope that you can stick around until noon and join the conversation. We know tomorrow is going to be a pretty big day in and around HRM as students with an HRCE begin the trudge back to work, the slog back to work at school. Of course, they are heading back to class tomorrow, and we get back into the routines. Lots of things on parents' minds as that happens, and one of them is the one thing that we can't control, and that is the weather. So we thought it appropriate to welcome our weather specialist, Allister Aalders, into the show today to give us a little peek at what's going to happen tomorrow when the kids line up to get into the school. When the bell still go? Anyway, when the bell goes and line up at the sidewalk corners to grab the school bus. So we're very pleased to welcome into the program our weather specialist. He is Allister Aalders. Allister, how are you?
I'm good, Dan. How are you?
I'm good. So you have a fairly good news forecast for those that didn't want to bring an umbrella on day one.
Exactly. It's looking like a pretty nice day overall for back to school tomorrow. And I mean, it's kind of that week where we're all trying to get back into that routine after, what was summer. Hard to believe it's over already. I mean, obviously the season still has a few weeks to go, but weather-wise for tomorrow, it's looking pretty nice. There will be some morning fog patches and a bit of cloud cover, but it should clear fairly quickly to mainly sunny skies. So it turns out to be a nice, bright, sunny day, light southwest winds, and warm tomorrow, 24 degrees. We've certainly had hotter back-to-school days in the past, well into the 30s. I can certainly remember a few times when I went back to school. That is a bit above where we should be for this time of year. Tomorrow side 24, we should be near 21, so it's a bit warmer, but it's not too bad, and it's not going to be uncomfortably or oppressively humid, which is nice as well. So, yeah, overall, pretty nice for back to school. Lots of sunshine tomorrow, and Friday's even looking nice too. Sun and cloud and highs near 23 here in HRM.
Any fog in the morning, Allister?
Yeah, that's what we're kind of dealing with now. Is we're having these cooler nights start to settle in, and it hasn't been, as I mentioned, too humid. So it gets, we see that humidity increase at nighttime because the temperature is cooler, falling back closer to that dew point. So I do expect we'll see some morning fog and a bit of cloud cover early tomorrow, but I do think it should clear fairly quickly otherwise, the day is looking nice and sunny, and it would be a similar setup for Friday, too.
Now, I know we would appreciate a sunny day for back to school. That all being said, we are also keeping our eye on the forecast for rain as we continue to deal with these dry conditions in and around HRM and right across the province. What are we looking at for rain, particularly as we head into the weekend?
So the best chances for any rain will come later this weekend. There will be a chance of a shower either later Friday afternoon or Friday evening, but not materializing to really anything. The best chances for rain will come in through Sunday along a slow-moving cold front. The models at this point in time, they're not in agreement on whether this would be, say, a more organized line of showers or if it would be something that's a bit more scattered. Obviously, this kind of weather along a front is often very convective, so you need the more high-resolution models to resolve it better, and a lot of those only go out, 48 hours in advance, so we're still a bit away from determining whether this is going to be, more widespread showers or something that's more scattered. Some of the global models that go out, up to a week or two in advance are showing the potential that this could be some widespread showers. But at this time, best opportunities for showers will be as we go through Sunday and Sunday night, possibly lingering into Monday for parts of the region. But overall, we're then back into a strong ridge of high pressure that dominates, and it looks like this overall pattern of high pressure being in the driver's seat with little to no opportunities for rain will continue for at least the first half of the month. So we need to obviously turn things around to make up for the deficit that we are in rainfall-wise, but we're not doing it at least in the next couple of weeks if the weather model guidance is accurate. And I would say there's fair agreement, amongst the models that, we will see generally a drier trend through the first half of September.
That's not good news considering Halifax Water is still concerned about consumption levels and the amount of water available for us to use, and of course the wildfire situation and the drought right across the province.
Yes, exactly. I mean, number of communities have been dealing with, low water levels. People are still getting their wells filled. So that's just, one part of the concern. And then you mentioned the wildfire situation. I know crews, it seems, have been making some good progress on that wildfire near West Dalhousie. The cooler nights and the fog patches are certainly helping out. But we need, as we've been talking about these longer duration rain events that, go on for a day or a day and a half, and there's just nothing showing up at this point in time that would support such a system moving through. I mean, we are getting into what I would consider a bit of a transition time in terms of the weather where, we're going to be heading into the fall season and we start to see the pattern flip, but that can sometimes be slow to lag too. We had a very dry fall last year, so we really do need to hope that things will turn around, or else we could be dealing. It was last fall that we had mandatory water restrictions for parts of HRM because of the lack of rainfall. And given we're already there in terms of, voluntary restrictions, if things really don't change, I would expect that such restrictions, mandatory restrictions, could have to come back into place just because there's not a lot of rain to talk about, unfortunately. I mean, we want a nice balance of nice weather, but we have been spoiled with the nice weather, and we could all really use a good, solid rainy pattern for a couple of weeks, but nothing on the horizon yet, Dan.
Well, keep us in touch, will you, Allister?
For sure, as always.
All right. I appreciate it, sir.
Thank you. Have a great day.
That is Allister Aalders, our weather specialist here at 95.7 News Radio. Doesn't look like there's much by the way of precipitation in the forecast. I know that is of concern to many of you. But the good news, I think, for at least tomorrow morning is a little bit of fog. Other than that, we're looking at a fairly nice day tomorrow as the majority of students get ready to go back to class for the very first time particularly within HRCE. We heard yesterday about a proposed 8.2% hike in electricity rates. This would come on top of a 36.6% increase in water rates. That has concern right across the board, particularly for those that rent and for landlords in the province. We're going to welcome from the rental housing providers of Nova Scotia, Kevin Russell, to the show after the break. You are listening to the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Aalders. Back in minutes. All right, welcome back to the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Aalders. Hope you're having a fantastic day. We had a vigorous discussion yesterday here on the program after word emanated from Nova Scotia Power suggesting a 8.2% increase in power rates on the horizon beginning in 26, half of it, and then half of it in 27. Some of the discussion yesterday centered on the cost of living here in HRM and in Nova Scotia by extension. And one of the, or a couple of the callers that we had yesterday said that this power rate, in conjunction with a proposed increase in water rates, is really going to hit everybody in the pocketbook. And whenever I start to think about things like that, I look out our window and I see these big buildings going up, and I think of people that are looking and struggling to pay their rent as it is, and these increases obviously are going to either hit them if it's a power rate. I know most renters pay their own electricity bill, but that water rate is certainly going to hurt. And it's going to hurt landlords as well, as they are the ones that provide the water service to the tenants. So we're very pleased to welcome into the program today to give us a little bit of perspective on this from the rental housing providers of Nova Scotia. It's Kevin Russell, its executive director. Kevin, how are you?
Dan, I'm well, thank you.
I guess the power rate thing was sort of the newest nugget that came out earlier this week, and I know it's still kind of fresh, and we really haven't really broken everything down. But anytime there's any kind of increase like that, tenants and landlords alike will certainly have to sharpen their pencils a little bit when it comes to budgeting for next year and the year after.
Yeah, no question, Dan. These rate increases are hitting our industry hard, and not only our industry but also renters. As you said, Nova Scotia Power is looking for 8.2% over 2 years, and Halifax Water is proposing a 36.6% increase in water rates. Renters will feel the pinch immediately, as most pay their own power bills, as you pointed out in your intro. But on top of that, building owners face higher costs for powering common areas, which will eventually flow back into rents. That's the way it works. And with water, it's tougher because most landlords and building owners include it in their rent, so they carry the full burden of that increase until it eventually works its way into the rent prices.
So, Kevin, and again, this is still proposed. We haven't seen it yet. But if this 36.6% comes from Halifax Water, would that all go onto rents, or would the landlords eat some of that? How is that all going to work, or do we know?
Well, we'll see how this all plays out. But the water is usually not included in the rent. So that full increase would eventually work its way into the rents, and then it would be for any water used in the common areas, in the laundry rooms and such, will be prorated over the buildings and will work its way into the rent also. So eventually, the increase for Halifax Water will work its way into the rent.
Is there concern because the rent cap is still on in Nova Scotia with an increase like this? That obviously is going to hit the landlord's bottom line.
Well, it will, in a sense that the allowable increase is 5%, but what we're seeing is price increases not only for utility rates, but in other areas of building inputs that pay for the building maintenance and repairs are coming in a lot higher than 5%. So it's an overall impact. So it's a collective of increases that are impacting the bottom line for rental housing providers in Nova Scotia.
Now, you've been part of a campaign, StopTheRateHikes.ca, urging people to get involved with this. I understand that submissions ended, I think it was yesterday, right? So has there been a response from Halifax Water, or have they just been silent?
We haven't heard anything from Halifax Water, but we're very pleased with the campaign we put on. When you go into these hearings, and this is our first one where we've appeared before the Nova Scotia Utilities and Review Board, is that they're packed with technical data and cost projections and infrastructure needs and engineering reports, but there's little attention paid to the ability of customers to pay. And the human side always gets lost in the numbers. And so that's why we launched this campaign, StopTheRateHike.ca, to give small customers, renters, and homeowners and small businesses a voice in this process. We wanted to remind the decision makers that real people are on the other end of these increases, and it worked. We had over 2,000 letters of complaints going to the regulator, and in total, supporters of the campaign sent over 31,000 emails to key decision makers that included Halifax Water, the Premier, the Mayor, and councillors. So for once, consumer voices were heard loud and clear. So we're very pleased with the campaign, and we hope the message resonates with the decision makers.
What's the next step now? Do we wait for a response, or where do we go from here?
Where we go from here is the fact that there's a hearing on September 15th, which we will participate in. It's scheduled to be over 2 to 3 days, and then once all the evidence is submitted, then the board will take all that information and come back with a reply in a couple of months. So.
Kevin, always when I have you on the phone, I'm always curious as to how the market is. I'm hearing and seeing stories and seeing some anecdotal information that the rental market is becoming a little more affordable in HRM. What are you hearing? Are rents coming down?
Yes, vacancy is increasing as new product is coming to market. As you know, there was a lot of cranes around Halifax for the last year and a half, 2 years, and now they're coming down, and that means there's more rental units in the market. And of course, the supply and demand is balancing, and so you'll see that rents are moderating, particularly in HRM. And so we'll start to see some rent reductions. We know there's a lot of rental incentives happening in the new product that's coming to market. And while in the older buildings, in existing buildings, there's rent discounting going on to be able to fill the buildings. So the market is starting to operate again the way it did pre-COVID, and that's positive because the market will look after itself, and you'll start seeing some rent reductions going on. Yeah.
Kevin, appreciate your time, sir.
Not a problem, Dan. Anytime.
That is Kevin Russell, the Executive Director of the Rental Housing Providers of Nova Scotia. When we come back, we'll continue our focus on back to school. It's the first day for many tomorrow. What are teachers looking at this year? What challenges will they face? Is there enough teachers to go around? Is there enough space in schools? President of the Nova Scotia Teachers Union, Peter Day, your guest when we come back. You're listening to The Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Oldstrand. We're back in minutes. All right, welcome back. I'm Dan Alstrand. Hope you're having a fantastic day. So you got the new book bag, you got the clothes, you got the pens and the pens. Kids even have pencil cases anymore? Probably not. I'm dating myself, right? But you got all the school supplies, you got all of the new clothes, you got all of the haircuts, you got all of the new shoes. Everybody's ready to go, and we're just waiting for the big day, and that is tomorrow. But your parents and students have a checklist of things that they need to get ready for school, but so are the teachers, because it's back to work for them. Well, I know they've been in the schools for some time now, but it's go time, as we used to say. And very pleased to welcome to the program to tell us a little bit about that from the Nova Scotia Teachers Union. He is Peter Day. Peter, how are you?
Hi, how you doing? Doing well. You know, it's beginning of September, so it's always that time of year of excitement and a little bit of apprehension, maybe.
It's go time, right? This is where the rubber hits the road, as they say.
Yeah, that's right. It's the nerves start building up a little bit, and maybe a little bit of anxiety, but mixed in with excitement. And I'm talking about the teachers, not even the students.
Right, absolutely. We forget about that. But anyway, I'm sure everything will go off without a hitch. It usually does. Peter, we had the education minister on yesterday, and we talked about a variety of things. But one of the things we talked about was the new schools that the province is building. I think the number was 14. And I asked the question, okay, you get 14 schools, and that's great, but they don't get built overnight. And, do we have enough space for the students that we're going to get this year? He says we do. I'm curious as to what you're hearing from your members about the space available for classes this year.
Well, I can tell you that is a real concern. I mean, if you look back 10, 15 years ago, the population was declining, and we actually had teacher layoffs because our student population was on a real decline. And if you look the last few years, our population in Nova Scotia has surged, and unfortunately, the infrastructure and the resources haven't kept up with that. So right now we have schools that are bursting at the seams. We have classes that are filled, that you can't get any more kids in the class. We have schools that are filled. And at some of our schools, we have portables that are brought in to help alleviate that. But at the end of the day, the space is a premium. Some of our classes are being taught in non-traditional classroom spaces. We have some classes that are being taught on the stage in the gymnasium. So these are, to say that there's space, sure, we're shoehorning them in. However, there's a very real need for more space.
How about teacher resources? I know that sometimes we run a bit short on teachers for all of the subjects and grades and classes. Do you have enough staff this year?
Well, that's been another concern for the last number of years. There is a teacher shortage not only in Nova Scotia but right across North America. I can tell you right now that there are jobs that are not filled at this point. And last year we saw similar. I mean, a lot of these jobs are specialized positions. So we want to make sure that we have qualified professionals in place for these positions so that students can have, the optimal learning environment and that they can thrive there. But we do have to look at not only recruiting new teachers to Nova Scotia, but we also have to look at retaining the teachers that we have. Many of our teachers are leaving the profession, and that's something that's very real. That's occurring right across the country, that teachers are leaving the profession.
I know last year there was some movement on violence in schools throughout the school year from the government. Are you pleased where we're at now, or is this just still a work in progress?
Well, it's definitely a work in progress. I mean, I don't think anybody is going to solve the issue of violent events occurring in our schools overnight. Last year we had the cell phone policy implemented, and that was a help for classroom engagement and making sure that the students were there. And now this year we do have the implementation of the school code of conduct, and that lays out what appropriate behaviors are and what unacceptable behaviors are, and then the consequences that go with that. So actually today, Nova Scotia teachers will all be receiving professional development on how to implement how this code of conduct will be implemented, and I guess what their responsibility is in how it's going to be enacted.
Are they responsible for making sure that this code is followed, or does that fall on the principal, or is there an outside agency? How does that all work?
Well, it's a team approach, right? I mean, that's the school community. Everybody has a shared responsibility to ensure that the school code of conduct is followed. You know, there are, like I said, acceptable behaviors, and then there's unacceptable behaviors, and the teacher, being the professional that they are, knows how to deal with classroom management, and then it's when things go beyond. We're not just talking about some minor misbehavior or something like that. It's when we get into things that are a little bit more unacceptable. And so the professional development that teachers will be receiving today is going to go through all of those routines. You know, and I guess where my concern is with this, and I can tell you that the NSTU is very pleased that there is a school code of conduct, and we had a consultation with that, and you know, it's a good document. The concern is, how is it going to be implemented, right? Like what supports are going to be put in place? Because all throughout the documents, there are supports that are mentioned, but at this point, we're not really aware what those supports are.
Peter, we're watching a labor situation unfold at the university level here in Halifax within Dalhousie University. Where are we at with the teacher's contract here for Nova Scotia?
Well, this will be currently we're in the last year of our collective agreement. So negotiations can open up in the spring of 2026. That's where we're at this point. So, you know, currently both sides will be developing their asking package, and then we'll head into that hopefully in the spring.
Last time around was a little bumpy, I'll say. Are you expecting it to be smoother this time, or is that impossible to predict?
Totally impossible to predict. I'll be honest with you. I mean, there's a number of factors that come into play. You know, anytime that there's negotiations happening, you know, how much of it bleeds out into the public. I mean, there was a contract that was negotiated very quickly and easily during COVID, right? That was one where there was no hoopla around it. It wasn't an amazing contract, but there was positives in it, and there was things that we were happy with, and it was accepted. But I can tell you right now, a lot of teachers don't even remember that contract being accepted. The last contract was, you know, there were some concerns around it, but at the end of the day, I thought it was a good contract, and you know, it was fairly negotiated, which is always important. And that's what it comes down to: is the two sides sitting at the table and having that back and forth negotiation, and that's what it's all about. And you know, I my heart goes out to the Dal University workers who were on strike. In fact, I was on the picket line with them last week to show my support. You know, because nobody wants to be on strike. When any organization ends up on strike, it's nobody wins. You know, you're fighting for your right to negotiate free and fairly, and that's what it comes down to.
Finally, Peter, before we let you go, I know you're busy. The minister yesterday on the program said the school lunch program is expanding this year. He said the menu is changing. There's no cauliflower because he doesn't like it, apparently. And teachers' thoughts on the school lunch program. I know that he says, and I know he's right, that, you know, kids learn better with full bellies.
That is 100% true. You know, I can tell you this, that since the implementation of this school food program in Nova Scotia, there are students who now have access to healthy meals who didn't prior to that. And a lot of people maybe have the privilege to not realize that hunger is a real thing that occurs in our classrooms. And our teachers are on the front lines, and we see that day in, day out. I know as a teacher myself, I kept a drawer full of Rice Krispie snacks and granola bars for my students when there was a need for it. You know, so anytime that we're offering an opportunity for students to have access to healthy food, I think that's a win. You know, at the end of the day, there's going to be some hiccups. You know, I've heard some concerns of food waste, you know, but at the end of the day, we want to ensure that our students aren't hungry. And we have students that are coming back from summer vacation. And unfortunately, many of our students probably wouldn't have had readily access to healthy food over the summer. And so we're happy to see that that's something that's going to be available for them. And the fact that it's expanding to junior high students, middle school students, I think that's a win. I'd absolutely love to see it expanded to all students so that we have a universal food program for every single student in public education in Nova Scotia.
Peter, I know it's a busy time. I appreciate you joining the program today, and have a great school year.
Thanks so much, and appreciate it.
That is Peter Day, the president of the Nova Scotia Teachers Union. We're going to stop and take a break. On the other side of it, there will be a changing of the guard, so to speak, in federal politics. The Green Party leader, Elizabeth May, is stepping away from politics, and she's going to join us here on the program to tell us what's next for her. Make sure you stick around for that. You're listening to The Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Aalders. We are back in minutes.
X.
Welcome back to the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Aalders. I hope you're having a fantastic day. And as I mentioned just before the break, there'll be a turning of the tide, as we like to say out here in our part of the world, with the federal politics scene, as the longtime stalwart leader of the Green Party, Elizabeth May, moves on to the next adventure in her life and takes a step back from politics. And we're very pleased to welcome Elizabeth May to the program. Elizabeth, how are you?
I'm great, Dan. I've just been thinking about turning of the tide. I'm looking due east at the moment at the sunrise from where I live in Saanich Gulf Islands and coastal British Columbia. And, of course, I used to live in Halifax.
Right.
I'm from Cape Breton, so it's always nice to get my voice to Halifax, even if I'm not there myself. A good morning from here, and thanks for having me on.
Well, very, very pleased to have you here, Elizabeth. I think you've been joining this program in its various iterations since almost the very beginning. It's been a journey, right?
Right. And I just, to clarify, I'm not really changing so much. I'll still be in Parliament. I was very, very grateful to the constituents of Saanich Gulf Islands for re-electing me. I was up against some very tough headwinds this election. As I think all of the candidates in the smaller parties, we faced a very strong narrative that this was somehow an election it was as if we were in U.S. politics all of a sudden. It was as if we were choosing between Mark Carney and Pierre Poilievre instead of electing our local MP. So I'm very gratefully returning to Parliament as leader of the Green Party and a member of Parliament. Don't plan to go anywhere, plan to run again in the next election. But we will have a leadership race within the Green Party. My choice, it's time we meet. I tried once before and it didn't work out very well, to put it mildly. So I really hope that by planning carefully, our whole team, and we have an elected council of volunteers who represent the members in between our members' meetings. We're a party that's led by members, not by the leader. And I'm really excited for what will happen when we have a leadership race and a big convention, I hope. And we haven't set the date for that. That will be set by our council as we look forward to what's good timing, what works. We know the NDP are about to start their leadership race. We know Pierre Poilievre is about to go through a leadership review. So things could be changing in other parties too. But meanwhile, at some point in the near future, there'll be somebody or a team of people as co-leaders who take over as my leader. I'll be in Parliament as a Green Party member of Parliament and looking forward to having a new face or faces for the Green Party to lead us into the next federal election whenever it happens.
All right, Elizabeth, I just want to put it out on the record here that you're not going to run this time around. You're not going to run for the leadership because you stepped back once before and it didn't quite stick, right? So, learning lessons is an important thing. And one of the biggest things that I think listeners will know this intuitively when I say it, succession planning in politics is really tough. Look at the Conservative Party. It went from Stephen Harper to then they
they've had several changes of leadership since then, and none of them were successful. Same thing, obviously, since the tragic death of Jack Layton, the NDP has been through quite a few leaders. When I stepped away, it was after our most successful election ever, where we had 3 Green MPs elected and we had a very high popular vote. And I thought, what a good time to step back. I don't want to be one of those leaders who has to be kicked out the door. So I kind of honestly, Dan, in hindsight, I made a mistake. We talked it over with council. I said, if I'm going to step away and we're going to have a leadership race, and Trudeau just won a minority government, that was in November or October of 2019, I better step down now so there's enough time for a new leader to get known. And the timing wasn't good because I actually stepped down rather than doing what I'm doing this time, which is saying, I'm leader of the Green Party. When we have a new leadership race and it's over, and we know who the next leader is, and we take our time and plan well for a transition, then I hope you can all close your eyes and imagine this wonderful moment when we have a big convention and lots of national media attention and a really terrific person or team steps up. So it's different than when I resigned in 2019, I think the easiest thing to say is that the person who was elected leader wasn't a good fit for the party values. It didn't work out. And I came back somewhat reluctantly a couple of years later, but really happily with the concept of co-leadership, which we now have in our Constitution as an option for our members. Again, specifically to deal with this problem. How do you have succession planning in a political party so that this is a conundrum? And I hope this time we're going to get it right. Please stick with us. If you've voted Green or been a Green Party member in the past, it's a great time to get involved again because the leadership race will start sometime in 2026. But that is yet the timing is yet to be determined. But the reality and the certainty of it is there that I'll be in Parliament representing the Green Party and holding the Carney government to account. And keeping an eye on our old buddy Pierre Poilievre, who's now the member of Parliament for a place he's never lived, Battle River Crowfoot. So we have excitement on federal politics. You'll see me around for quite a while yet as leader of the Green Party until the next leader is elected.
Elizabeth, you mentioned earlier that it was a difficult struggle in the last campaign because we kind of devolved into a two-party fight, and MPs weren't being voted on, was voting for leaders. That's likely will be the vernacular moving into the next one. How does the smaller party, how does the Green Party, by extension, how does the NDP kind of break this two-party mentality that we're into now?
I hope we can do it by reminding Canadians of what our system of government is and what it isn't. Now, that sounds like, speaking of your just previous interview with Peter Day, that's a very school teaching problem. By the way, thanks to all the teachers out there. My daughter's a teacher, so I'm just going to stop and say today's teachers are heroes at a level that I think a lot of us older parents and grandparents can barely realize how tough it is these days to be a school teacher. But I feel like in Parliament, my job is to be an educator. And I have to say some of my colleagues in Parliament I regard as slow learners, but you got to keep trying. And in an election campaign, we have to make it very clear to Canadians, you shouldn't be voting out of fear. And that's what drives people to this incorrect notion that it's a two-party system. So on April 28th, when people went to the polls this spring, a lot of it was fear-based voting based on fear of Trump or fear of Poilievre. And as a result, really great Green MPs like Mike Morris in Kitchener Centre lost to a Conservative because of a surge of voting for Liberals. And then afterwards I had the voting regret in Kitchener Centre at losing Mike Morris as an MP, the best MP they ever had. That has happened in a number of ridings across Canada where people feeling, oh gosh, I've got to vote, quote unquote, strategically, which is what happens when people start hearing the drumbeat that usually comes from the bigger parties. Don't waste your vote is the kind of thing you hear. So we obviously do need electoral reform so we don't have a voting system that drives people out of fear to to be afraid to vote for what they want and vote for sort of second or third best because they really fear something else out there. So I hope before the next election we can get our voting system to change to what Justin Trudeau promised in 2015. But that's, let's not brand it with the name Justin Trudeau's promises, because there are a lot of them out there broken and left behind. But this is really important, to have a voting system where every vote not only counts, but every voter knows that they can vote for what they want without fearing that it will deliver what they least want. So that's a key problem. And I think a lot of it is getting out early. Snap elections are not our friends. That's called when somebody in power thinks, if I go right now, the polls show I can kind of pull a fast one. Snap elections aren't great. We hope we have enough runway to know what we're facing. We've already opened our nominations in the Green Party so candidates can get nominated, start knocking on doors now, because nothing is as persuasive for a citizen as having a candidate on a doorstep who's willing to just listen for a while, what's on your mind. So we're going to be trying to knock on as many doors as we can, as early as we can, and let people know you're not stuck with a very limited menu of things you don't want. Column A and column B. There's this really healthy choice out here. Pick your greens.
Elizabeth, we're out of time. I appreciate yours. Have a good last few days before you head back to work in Ottawa, and I'm sure we'll talk to you many more times moving forward.
Anytime, Dan. Give my best to Todd. I love chatting with you guys. Keep up the great work.
Appreciate it, Elizabeth.
Talk soon.
That is Elizabeth May, the leader of the Green Party, who says that she'll stay in that job until they pick somebody new or a team new, and will continue to represent her constituents from her riding out there in British Columbia. Time to stop down, take a break. Blake is going to update us on what's going on in the news. On the other side of the Blake, it's time for House Calls. Dr. John Gillis will be here to answer your medical-related questions. If you have a question for the good doctor, the lines are now open. 902-405-6000. It's 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. House Calls is next.
Acts.
Welcome back to the Todd Veinotte Show. It's Wednesday, and that means it's time now for House Calls. We're very pleased to welcome into the studio today to answer your medical-related questions. While into the studio on the phone, that is Dr. John Gillis. Dr. Gillis, how are you?
I'm doing great. How's things?
It's been a while since you've been in the studio.
Oh, it's been years. Just stopped doing that with COVID and never got back to it.
See, there you go. Maybe one day you'll surprise us and show up and I won't know who you are.
Absolutely.
Dr. John?
Yeah,
fair enough. Just very quickly, I watched some rugby on the over the last few days, watching the women's team, and they're doing well.
Yeah, our women's team, Canadian women's team, who are at the World Cup as we speak, for those who don't follow such things, are ranked number 2 in the world and have a legitimate shot of winning the whole thing. They're 2-0, and they're likely to win their third game and finish first in their pool. And I'm heading over next Thursday to catch their quarterfinal. So I'm looking forward to that. Yeah,
it's a sport that's popular here, but just really doesn't get a lot of attention, right?
We're trying, but you're right. It's there's a lot of competition for sporting interest and dollars, and trying to get people's attention can be a challenge. But like I said, these women are doing great. They were in training camp here a few years ago, so we know quite a few of them. Olivia DeMerchant, who's from New Brunswick originally, but is a firefighter in Nova Scotia and actually plays with my club, the Halifax Tars, is on that team, and she's doing really well. And like I said, can't wait to get over and cheer these women on and hope they go all the way.
Outside of Canada, this Rugby World Cup is a huge event.
Well, it is, and it's quite gratifying. As someone who's been around, rugby's a very egalitarian game. I mean, equal numbers of men and women.
Right.
In fact, I think our club some of the clubs have more women registered. There's a real support, for both sides. But to watch the women's game grow and be recognized on the international stage, I mean, the final, I believe, was sold out at the English stadium, the rugby stadium, Twickenham, 82,000. And as it should be, but it's taken a while to get there, and it's been some great performances and some real engagement by the fans, which is fantastic.
I'm really liking and I know we're off topic, but I really liking the rise in women's sports in rugby and in soccer internationally. It's starting to become, particularly in this country, but even in the European leagues, women's sports getting much more of a push. We've got the Tides here now to complement the Wanderers, and women's sports is on the rise, as they say.
Absolutely, and again, it's the way it should be. We, in some ways, shouldn't have to talk about it, but also continue to promote it, support it, and engage. So that my daughter's 14; she's a rugby player, and she wants these opportunities, and I want them for her. And some of these women who are at that World Cup now were the trailblazers. They were paying their own way to do this, very recently, and they've really set a standard, and we applaud them.
Go Canada, go! 902-405-6000 is the number, 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. This is House Calls. Dr. John is here for the next little while to give us his thoughts on your medical questions. So if you have a question, this is a perfect opportunity for you to get it in. Again, the number 902-405-6000. That's 1-877-801-8255. Dr. John got an email question before the show today I'd like you to take a listen to. It says, I've been diagnosed with high blood pressure. Now, the doctor prescribed me water pills, but I'm concerned that they aren't working. Is there another medication that I should be looking at in addition to dietary changes?
I guess my first question is, why don't you think they're working? I guess with an email question, we can't get that answer.
Right.
So, dietary changes, less salt is the biggest one. More exercise, weight loss can definitely help blood pressure. But I guess the first thing I would say is why don't you think your pills are working? What are your numbers? And if the numbers aren't coming down, talk to whoever prescribed them and either adjust the dose or try something else would be first principles.
Now, the water pills are designed, obviously, to increase your to get the salt out of your system, right?
Yeah, generally speaking, I mean, to make you, change your fluid balance and get some of the, that's essentially it. And it just helps your body process it a little bit differently and lower your blood pressure.
Well, high blood pressure is kind of common, and there's all kinds of different medications and things, right?
Yeah, there are multiple different classes, and there's different reasons why a certain class would be better for a certain individual. Age-related, other conditions, that sort of thing, and it's important to assess that. Again, first principles coming back to, keep yourself fit. Eat well, lay off the salt, and, keep your weight down is the first place. We can't be relying on pills to treat everything, and unfortunately there's a lot of that.
Do you find that, Dr. John, that everybody kind of wants that magic, pill to fix me overnight kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of that. I mean, I think we've made some progress in the last few years around, being aware of, what we eat and exercise, and, some good PR campaigns in that regard. But we still see a lot of it. My blood pressure's up, give me a pill. My cholesterol's up. In the case of cholesterol, it's very genetic. There are people that are in perfect shape that have high cholesterol, and people that are in terrible shape that have normal cholesterol. So sometimes you can't help it. People with joint issues, it can be a catch-22. They're overweight and their knees hurt. But because their knees hurt, it's hard to walk or do things to lose the weight. So, you want to help, but you want people to focus on, being healthy and not just relying on a pill.
902-405-6000. It's 902-405-6000. Let us welcome Julie to the program. Julie, how are you?
Oh, good, thanks.
Your question for the doctor, please.
Yes, without going into my case history, I'm trying to maintain my weight. And I weigh myself every day, but I find that when I have a bowel movement, I gain like 1 to 3 pounds. And I was just wondering why that is after I have one.
Well, that makes no sense at all. I mean, are you wearing yourself
No.
after?
Yes. That's what my question is. Yeah.
I got nothing. Sorry.
Am I retaining fluid? Am I retaining fluid, perhaps?
From where? Where would you retain it from?
That's what I'm trying to figure out. I've been doing this for 4 months. I've been recording it. Yes.
Yeah, that makes no sense. And you're weighing yourself immediately before and immediately after.
Yeah. Just out of curiosity. The first time it happened, it's like, okay. So I kept track of it for 3 months. And every once in a while, it'll happen. And I gain up to 1 to 3 pounds. And then I don't understand. The next day, it goes back down.
Yeah, unless you're drawing water back up the pipe, I don't think, and I don't think that's the case. I have no good explanation for that. So.
Okay, then. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Julie. Appreciate it. You'd think that it would be the exact opposite, right? You're letting stuff go, so you shouldn't be gaining weight, right?
100%.
Well, it's a miracle of modern science. Maybe it might be your scale. Maybe it's a scale that's just not accurate. But anyway, that's bizarre. Anyway, Dr. John, another email question that we have to deal with all of this weather that we've been having. Heat, humidity, and hot flashes, it's called in the subject line. It says, I have hot flashes. I'm on a hormone therapy. This summer's heat and humidity seems to have triggered them a lot more this year. Outside of air conditioning, is there anything that can be done?
I would say, optimizing your medications, air conditioning is helpful, minimizing your time in the direct sun, dehumidifiers. Some air conditioners keep a room cool, but don't take the humidity out of it. Right. Most heat pumps do both, but, that's relevant. And just, where you keep your base temperature, wear loose clothing, that sort of thing. Don't walk around naked in public. That might cause a stir. But, yeah, those are the things.
Might raise the temperature in other ways.
Indeed.
Going to stop and take a break. Dr. John is here on the other side of it. This is House Calls. If you have a medical question, he is here to answer it. 902-405-6000, 902-405-6000. House Calls continues after the break. All right, welcome back to the Todd Veinotte Show. It's House Calls. He is Dr. John Gillis. He is here to answer your medical-related questions. If you have a question for the doctor, lots of lines open to get in here. 902-405-6000. It's 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. To the phones now, we welcome Marilyn to the program. Marilyn, how are you?
Oh, pretty good, thank you.
Your question, please.
I have a question regarding, I'm one of the many who don't have a doctor. I haven't had a doctor for quite some time now. Back about 3 years ago, around 3 years ago, I went into the clinic because I had terrible pains in my side and my lower back and whatnot. They sent me for an x-ray, and they discovered I had a cyst on my kidney. And I had been trying for 3 years to get somebody to send me for another test to tell me whether the cyst has grown, where it is, if it's grown, if it's gone, or whatever. I've been into both clinics, and the last time I went into the clinic and quit. And this is what the doctor told me. He said, ma'am, I'm sorry, but we can't afford to send you for tests unless they're recommended by a doctor. I told him, I said, I've had this complaint for 3 years. I was told I had a cyst. I just want some information. So does he have any recommendation that I can get some sort of help to tell me where that cyst is today?
Yeah, sorry, who told you that you couldn't do a test?
A doctor at the Quit Center.
Yeah, I'm just confused by that. You said you can't do it unless a doctor says it. Wasn't that person themselves a doctor?
Exactly, that's what I thought. But he said, ma'am, we can't afford to send you for x-rays or tests or what have you. Like, it kind of made it look like any Finelli type thing we send you for tests. He made it sound like it was very unimportant. I waited, sir, for over 11 hours that day to see him. That's how long I waited. And that was the only result I got. I left and came home.
Yeah, so look, I'm sorry that happened to you. I mean, respectfully, the amount of time you waited has nothing to do with the decision point, and I hear that all the time. I waited, therefore you should do this test for me. That doesn't influence the decision making. Now, having said that, I'm not sure why somebody wouldn't, send you for a repeat. The only thing I can think of is they may have looked at your ultrasound and it said it was a benign cyst. and cysts don't cause pain. We see a lot of things like this when we do ultrasounds looking for kidney stones or tumors or what have you, and then we see a cyst. So the cysts are, if they're believed to be benign based on the X-ray report, they don't cause pain. There's often no reason to do another test. Now, if I guess the way I would frame it is if you're still having symptoms, you're still having pain, then that would probably be a reason to look again. The person you saw may have just felt, there's no reason here. This is a benign cyst. It's small. That's not the cause of your pain. You're not having pain anymore. Why would we bother? And again, I don't mean to, I'm not minimizing how you feel, but I'm just trying to explain that may have been the thought process. If you're still having symptoms or you're concerned about it, you probably have two options. You could go on Maple, speak to somebody and say, can you order an outpatient ultrasound for me? Again, it would depend who you got, but that's not unreasonable to me. Or you could try the ER again. Again, you might encounter the same thing. You're not. I guess that's the question. Are you still having symptoms, or are you just worried about this cyst?
Well, no. The problem is I'm fairly active. I walk every day. So once I'm up and on the go, I'm 100% okay. It's when I lie down at night, that's when I have the pain in my side and my back. I sleep probably 2 hours a night, and that's the very maximum. And it's been like that now for a good year.
I suspect the kidney is a red herring, or the cyst. It probably has nothing to do with your back pain. I think what you probably need to do is, either on Maple at a walk-in clinic, or if it's real bad at the ER, get someone to assess you for back pain and come up with a plan to treat your back pain. It seems to me that a benign kidney cyst has probably got nothing to do with it. But, I can't tell you that definitively. You probably need to get someone to have a look at you.
Yeah, the back pain is not the issue. Like, I don't have back pain. I just have so much discomfort when I lie down. It's
pain and discomfort to me are the same thing. So
yeah, just getting back to the doctor. Just getting back to the doctor I mentioned that I saw. You said he probably looked at it and saw. I am like 100% sure he looked at nothing, because they were busy. Obviously, I waited over 10 hours. He walked in. I told him what I was having. He said, and his response, he never checked no records, no nothing. His response was immediately, "Ma'am, we can't send you for X-rays unless we can't afford to send you for X-rays unless." And that was it. That was my conversation with him. No more, no less.
Yeah, well, I wasn't there that day. I'm sorry that happened, but those are my suggestions to you. If you're still concerned, Maple walk-in clinic or back to the ER are your options. But focus on why you're having. Discomfort is another word for pain in my world. It's just maybe it's a degree thing. Give that a try.
Marilyn, appreciate it. Best of luck. 902-405-6000. That's 902-405-6000. If you have a question for the doctor, he is here to answer it. Very quickly, Dr. John, before we go to the break at the bottom of the hour, got an email that says, my spouse, and I'm going to try to pronounce this properly, my spouse has trigeminal neuralgia, and the person is asking, what are the surgical options for him?
Well, that is a question for a neurosurgeon, not for me. There are some procedures where they, if the nerve is wrapped too tightly, they can go in and, affect its position. There are some injection procedures that can help, but that's a very subspecialized issue depending on where the problem is and also on what medical treatments have been tried. So that's probably all I can give you there.
What exactly is it?
It's an inflammation of one of the nerves in your face, basically, the trigeminal nerve, which can cause very intense electrical pain and is very hard to diagnose and very hard to treat, unfortunately.
902-405-6000 is the number. 902-405-6000 is the way you can get onto the program and get your question answered. If you have a question for Dr. John Gillis, he's here for the next 30 minutes to answer it. It's a good opportunity to get some second opinion or maybe get something that's been bothering you a quick diagnosis on. Again, 902-405-6000 is the number. House Calls continues after the news at the bottom of the hour. You're listening to The Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand. We are back in minutes. right, welcome back to the Todd Veinotte Show. It's House Calls. He is Dr. John Gillis. He's here to answer your medical questions. If you have one, 902-405-6000 is the number. 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. We'll go right to the phone and welcome Joe to the program. Joe, how are you?
I'm not bad. I have a question regarding ER wait times. I heard recently, I think it was a hospital in New Brunswick, where people came in and they're to the ER and they were triaged, and if they were nothing, they were going to die of, or nothing, extremely, bleeding or whatever. They were told to go home and come back at a certain time, like 5 hours later or something like that. Why can't we do that?
I think the short answer is that's very hard to administer. I've not heard of that happening. I mean, it's not the worst idea in the world. I just don't know who you get to track it, right? You need a system to track it and keep people online. I'd certainly be interested in hearing more about it if you knew where that's happening, because like I said, that's definitely the first I've heard of it, and I work in that world. But
there was one hospital, I think, I thought it was in New Brunswick. It could have been Quebec, and it's like just one hospital decided to do this. Or they must have some kind of system for tracking. But that would be a good system for somebody to build to make a few bucks. Thank you.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, again, it comes back to logistics and how you keep track of where people are, and if they get triaged and leave and don't come back, what do you do with them then? That happens. We deal with people who, show up, get triaged, get sick of waiting and leave, and sometimes they have blood work and then there's something in the blood work, but they've left because they're tired of waiting, and then you end up chasing them, and so there are a lot of moving parts around these things. But anything we can do to improve efficiency, I'm all for it, as long as it works and doesn't cause other problems. But if that's happening somewhere, I'd certainly be interested in hearing about it. But it's always okay, well, I heard this. Well, where'd you hear it, and what are the details? And yeah, I'd love to know more.
Joe, appreciate it. We'll try and dig that out for you. Dr. John, obviously you work in the ER world. Has the wait times have they lessened? Are they the same? What's going on there?
Yeah, I mean, they're about the same. I mean, you become numb to it. 6-8 hour waits. Someday the odd day you get a good day. Very little rhyme or reason to it. Sometimes. Sometimes you think it's going to be terrible. A Monday after the weekend, and that's fine. And other days you expect a good day, and it's backed up 12 hours. It's an ongoing problem.
902-405-6000, 902-405-6000 if you have a question for Dr. Gillis. Lots of lines open. Again, 902-405-6000. You mentioned blood work just a moment ago, Dr. John. I got an email question, said my blood test recently led to my doctor diagnosing me as being pre-diabetic. Doctor says that pre-diabetes is a common thing, but it's certainly concerning. Doctor said to lose weight, of course. Are there any other options? What should I do?
Well, other options like what? I mean, pre-diabetes often means that one of the blood markers, the hemoglobin A1C, which suggests that your sugar has been intermittently above normal, even though it may not be at a single point in time. That's one of the triggers we look for. The number one cause of early, what we used to call type 2 diabetes, late onset, typically not requiring insulin, the descriptions are a little different now, is insulin resistance from fat. I mean, fat cells, affect how insulin does its job. People who are overweight, they develop insulin resistance and their sugar goes up. Insulin is the hormone that regulates sugar. So the latest craze, as we've talked about ad infinitum, is Ozempic, Wegovy, which are actually diabetic drugs that people are now using to lose weight. And, the evidence has been that they are effective, with the caveats that they have side effects. They're not for everybody. And, just relying on drugs, as I've said many times, is not the way. I mean, there are people out there that no matter what they do in terms of diet and exercise, and this is an important statement to make, that have tried everything, and they just, for metabolic reasons, hormonal reasons, they just can't crack it. And, in some cases, these drugs are very useful. So, what are the options other than weight loss? Controlling your diet. A lot of people think it's, if I just stop eating sugar. If you're eating 3 large donaires a week, and you stop eating the one, O. Henry bar, that's not gonna solve the problem, because your body just converts all the other fuel, to calories and sugars. It's not going to help you lose weight. It's not going to help the pre-diabetic. So, less in, burn off more, balanced diet, exercise, and in some cases, like I said, people do need some help with some of these medications, but they're not for everybody.
Would it be safe to say that being diagnosed as pre-diabetic is kind of like a warning sign that you're getting close and you need to do something now?
That's exactly right.
902-405-6000. It's 902-405-6000. Dr. John, last week we were briefly chatting about the plan to ban kids under 16 off of social media that the provincial Liberals are planning to table in the legislature. I saw another story this week dealing with pre-16-year-olds out of the UK, where they already have a they have a sugar ban there. Now they're looking at expanding that to energy drinks. What are your thoughts on energy drinks, particularly in kids under 16?
Well, look, some of these energy drinks are just, absolutely.
I think we've lost Dr. John.
Sorry, my computer's doing funny things. I was trying to connect to my phone. Some of these energy drinks are just so full of caffeine and sugar, to the point where they can be dangerous. I mean, on one level, they're, too much of either substance is not healthy for you. To the extreme, and people who are at risk, there have been reports of people, having cardiac events from too much caffeine, that sort of thing. That stuff's pretty rare. So, look, I think these things should be regulated. I mean, we get back into the, how much is too much? What should we regulate? What shouldn't we? It's tough to find the balance. I mean, we've agreed that prohibition doesn't work, but we've also agreed that we, have laws and rules around who can buy what and what strengths are available. And I think there does need to be some regulation in these, drinks as to how much sugar and caffeine are in them. How easy is it to enforce? I'm 15 and I want a Monster, and my buddy's 16. Are we bootlegging energy drinks now? So,
right.
Not to put too fine a point on it. So I think some regulation is reasonable, and how we set the bar can be challenging, but I think it's generally a good faith initiative.
Is it any more risk to kids that are younger than 16 than older than 16, or is that just kind of the number that people pick?
That's pretty arbitrary, right. I guess. At what point are you, and this comes back to consent as well. I mean, we deal with this in the medical world. At what age is someone able to consent to their own treatment and their own, some cases people have the ability to consent at age 14 if they, or thereabouts, if they're understanding and able to make a decision for themselves. And, that comes down to insight and maturity. And, sometimes that's difficult to assess. We don't have to do that all too often, but, you can put a very fine point on this, or you can just say, look, this is what we're doing. And look, we do it with alcohol and cigarette sales here. I mean, should it be 18 for alcohol? Should it be 21? I mean, you can go fight in a war, but you can't have a Keats. We could debate it till we're blue in the face. So we try to find reasonable, numbers and limits and reassess as we go.
Geez, we had Donaires and Keiths in the same segment. True Blue Nova Scotian today, Dr. John.
Indeed.
Going to stop and take another break. Dr. John will be here on the other side. You're listening to House Calls on the Todd Veinotte Show. We're back in minutes.
Axe.
All right, welcome back to the Todd Veinotte Show. It's House Calls. He is Dr. John Gillis. He's here for the next few minutes to answer your medical-related questions. If you've got a quick one, here's your opportunity. 902-405-6000. That's 902-405-6000. 6,000. Dr. John, one more email question, I think, will probably take us to the top of the hour. It says, my wife has IBS. Now, we changed our diet, and we've tried antidiarrheals and haven't found that balance yet between them and the laxatives. It's obviously IBS is a debilitating disease. Are there any other options?
Yeah, there are a number of drugs that are on the market that have come out in the last few years to, treat IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, as opposed to inflammatory bowel syndrome, which is, Crohn's and colitis, which is something much worse. Usually we recommend starting with dietary changes, sometimes getting advice from a dietitian, some insight that you might not have thought of, going through, again, things like people can be lactose sensitive, but not lactose intolerant. It may bother you, but not make you sick or anything. So there's some tricks there. And then, talking to your healthcare provider about some of the medications for IBS that have come out. There are some different options, but a good, I would say more formalized dig into diet would be the starting point.
Is there a cure for it, or do you just control it?
It's not really, it's not like a disease in the traditional sense. Like, I have bowel cancer, it needs to be cut out. I've got pneumonia, it needs to be treated. It's kind of how your bowels are acting on an ongoing basis. And, some people just have a situation whereby they're either very hypersensitive to some things, but it can go either way. You get spasm, pain, you can get diarrhea, you can get constipation. It's really a managed condition. Now, some people with, doing all the things, completely changing their diet and some treatment can take the symptoms to zero. But, it's not like a disease in the sense that we think of it as, I've got it, I need to cure it. It's more of a management thing, I would say.
Just about out of time, Dr. John. Tomorrow is the bulk of students going back to school at the elementary level. Any advice from the good doctor to parents and students as they head out the door tomorrow and back to class?
Oh, just hope everyone has a good year, and it's a busy time of year. Be safe out there. The traffic's a little nuts, and be patient and be safe.
Dr. John, is always a pleasure, sir.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
That is Dr. John Gillis. He's here every Wednesday to answer your medical-related questions. We're going to, of course, take you up to the top of the hour. On the other side of it, it is Wednesday, so we're going to open up the telephone lines. The Wednesday Mid-Week Meltdown, as it has been come to known. There's lots to talk about it there. Going back to yesterday's discussion on the power rate increase, 8.2%, 4.1% in each of next year and 2027. There hasn't been a lot of love for that, as you might expect. But what is, I think, different this time around, if I can say that, is that all three political parties in Nova Scotia have come out against this rate increase. We heard from the Liberal Party who are against it. We heard from the NDP who are against it. And yesterday, we heard from the Premier of Nova Scotia, Tim Houston, saying that they're just not listening to Nova Scotians. And he was concerned that on the eve of a massive data breach, that this is the last thing that Nova Scotia Power should be doing, is increasing power rates for people who are dealing with that. And he said that it should either go away or it should be reduced significantly. Took some calls on it yesterday. Obviously, our caller's not happy with it. I don't know anybody that would be really happy with a power rate increase, but this one just feels wrong, doesn't it? It just feels like this one is a bit of a kick in the gut after all of the issues that we've had moving forward with Nova Scotia Power. Also, yesterday, we heard from DNR and from the emergency management folks out there on the wildfire at Long Lake, who have let, I think it was almost 360, I think was the number, people back into their homes. That's great news. And I know that many of you are thinking about all of those people impacted by the fire. I did get a new poll today that I'm very curious as to what your thoughts are. It comes to us from Angus Reid. It says, the slow but steady march of workers back to their on-site offices picked up tempo when public sector unions in other provinces outside of Nova Scotia requiring office full-time in January. This quoting the Ontario Premier Doug Ford. They may be increasing the pace of the return, but new data from the nonprofit Angus Reid Institute finds that Canadians are divided over the federal government's following suit. Slightly fewer than half are supportive, while close to the same number are opposed. Now, this is where the interesting numbers break down. Among public sector workers, fully half, about 53%, oppose the idea of return to work, compared to 1 in 3 that are in favor. It's a rather large margin. So far, the federal government has kept its options open as to whether it will require its employees to fully work in the office in the future. The current federal policy is at least 3 days in office for most, 4 days for executives, and that has the support of about 57%. The interesting part is that the numbers are similar in the not-for-profit organization, and I think I said at the beginning of the show today when I first broached this subject that I can understand that not-for-profits are looking at work from home as a cost-saving alternative, right? Not-for-profits, for the most part, are generally very cash-strapped and having office space and rent and all that stuff that they can avoid by having people work from home. I think I can get my head wrapped around that one. The private sector, however, doesn't think this is a good idea. They think that workers should be back in the office 5 days a week like it was pre-pandemic. About 45% of respondents there say that they want people back in the office. 44%, pretty close, say that they would strongly oppose it. Some would strongly oppose or would strongly support it. So big swings when it comes to the private sector, big swings in the not-for-profit, and Canadians divided with a slight edge to people wanting people back to work in the private sector. My question to you today is, return to work. Should public sector employees, should government workers be back in the office 5 days a week, both at the provincial level and at the federal level? We've had this discussion before. I'm curious if your opinion has changed. Back to work. I'm at a loss when it comes to this because I've always had to, I have to be here to do my job. So I've not worked from home. I hear from people who do, who suggest that it's a more efficient place to work. I hear from others that say that if we're trying to get cars off the road and we're trying to combat congestion, putting public sector workers back into the office is only going to contribute to that, and they're able to do their job from home. So should they be able to continue to do so? That's one of the questions. But of course, this is the Midweek Meltdown. You can talk about whatever it is on your mind. The lines are now open, 902-405-6000. We'll take calls after the news, 902-405-6000. That's 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255 is the number. Also, some news today on an article in a couple of publications. The CBC has an article on it. The mayor is in the news. Mayor Savage. Mayor Fillmore is in the news today after a couple of complaints have been launched against the mayor with regards to the code of conduct that our municipal politicians are to follow. The genesis of this story was that the mayor made some comments on a CBC radio program about the CAO, essentially, and I'm paraphrasing here, saying that he works for the CAO. Now, right after that happened, I can remember there was a number of councillors that come out and said, no, that's not true. And the CAO herself, Cathy O'Toole, says that's not the case, that the CAO works for council. Now, some people have taken that to the complaints process that we have under the Code of Conduct for municipal councillors. There's been an independent investigation that has determined that this case has merit and should move forward. Something else you might want to discuss as part of the open hour today. Our telephone lines are open, 902-405-6000, 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. The Midweek Meltdown open hour after the news.
Facts.
Welcome back to the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Ahlstrand. It is time now for the Mid-Week Meltdown Open Hour. The telephone lines are open, 902-405-6000. It's 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. Lots to talk about. We can continue our conversation yesterday about power rate increases. The mayor apparently in a bit of hot water with a couple of code of conduct violation investigations underway. And a new poll has Canadians split on whether or not we should force people back to the office 5 days a week. The interesting number here for me is that overall Canadians at 45% that strongly support mandated return to full-time work at the office. 43% strongly oppose it, with about 12% undecided. The breakdown, though, is the interesting part. The public sector, people that work in the public sector polled think that 53% oppose mandated return to work. 36% fully support it. In the private sector, it's pretty close. 45% support mandated return to work. 44%, 1 percentage point off, strongly oppose it. And in the not-for-profit sector, over 50% of respondents there strongly oppose mandated return to work full-time. My question to you on this is a pretty simple one, and I stand to get some education here on the program today because, as I mentioned before the break, during the genesis of this work from home phenomenon, I think we can call it, that occurred as a result of the pandemic, my job required me to be here every day. So I didn't and haven't worked from home. So I don't know if some of the things I hear about it are true. I don't know if it is more efficient. I don't know if it is a better working environment for me to work. I hear from people who are currently working from home that say, we're trying to get cars off the road. We're trying to relieve congestion. Yet, on the other side of the government's argument is that we are going to put more cars on the road when I can do my job as efficiently, if not more, at home. 902-405-6000, 902-405-6000. This boils down to a mandate for public sector workers, both the federal and provincial level, being mandated to return to the office 5 days a week. Do you think that's a good idea? 902-405-6000, 902-405-6000. And I mentioned the power rates off the top, and I know we had a good discussion on that yesterday. And as I've said many times and will continue to say, I'm not a mathematician. Math is not my strong suit. And I know there's a number of you that are listening to the program that it is. I got an email from Don, who wants to set the record straight. He says, Dan, can you please stop saying that the increase is 8.2% over 2 years? It's incorrect. It's actually more. And he breaks it down into stuff that I can understand. He said a $1,000 invoice would be $1,041 for year one. That's 1,000 times 1.041. But the year two invoice would be $1,080 or $1,083.68. Because that's $1,041 times 1.041. Because what I'm not doing is adding the first year's increase into it. So what I did was say, well, I just take the 4.1, the 4.1, add them together. It's an 8.2% increase. But Don very correctly says it's actually more. The 2-year increase is then 8.368%. Much smarter people out there than me that listen to this program. Don, I appreciate it. Maybe we'll start to say 4.1% increase in the next of 2 years, which is correct. Right? Because you're going to get 4.1 and then you get an additional 4.1 on top of what you're already paying. But if you add them together, like I was doing incorrectly, that number comes to 8.368%. Thank you to Don. 902-405-6000. Let's start the conversation with Bill. Bill, how are you?
Not too bad, sir. Not too bad.
What's on your mind today?
Well, at my ripe old age now of 96, I've got a lot of stuff that I've got to try to find a home for, as I'm one of the worst collectors in the town, I guess. And so I've kind of gone this road before without much help. What I done today, I decided, okay, the Public Archives, province of Nova Scotia, I'll call them. Well, first of all, they were always usually under museums. Now they got shifted over to under the province itself. So now that's okay, I guess. So then that's the first hurdle, find that figured out. Now the next thing is to try to get somebody on the phone. A while back I tried that, and that didn't work out. I left my message like they wanted. So I've done the same again today. I'm going to wait and see if they call me this time. So that's that one. Then the Museum of the Atlantic, I've got some stuff for them. I'll call them. The same situation. You get this here answering service. I've got some real good stuff to. The old lady boats, I don't even remember them. They used to come in here with the bananas and the rum down in Pier 28. I've got a big model of that. One of the Lady Rodney, I think it is. But the bottom line is they're not answering the phones. Now, I don't know if they're working from home or what. And by the way, there's also, I guess it's an archives or a museum of sorts the city has. And more people don't even know that. It's over there in Burnside. The bottom line is, it's a shame that they can't answer the phone. I don't know if they're answering from home or what. I'd like to donate some stuff and talk to them, but I'm not getting too far. So whether they're on this thing about working at home, I don't know. But I'll tell you right now, that this getting onto that one, this work at home business, it's a good idea about the cars, not having the cars on the road. But there's a couple other areas I think they're forgetting is their office space in the downtown office building. They're not there, but yet we taxpayers are paying for these empty buildings or empty sections of the building. What do you think?
It's a fair point, Bill. Fair point.
Can you get them on answering the phone?
I'll do what I can. How's that?
There's so many of it, that's like that in government today. I mean, they're just not answering the phones.
It's not just government, Bill. I think a lot of people hide behind their voicemails these days when you're trying to get a hold of them. Vanessa can attest to that.
Well, it's a shame because there's lots of people out there got good things to donate. By the time it goes through the system, they give up. But something like myself, just about. Anyway, thanks again, old boy.
Have a good one, sir.
Thank you.
902-405-6000 is the number, 902-405-6000, and I can definitely say that Bill is a collector. He has warehouses of stuff that he wants to unload, and hopefully it would be nice to see some of that stuff sent to the museum. It needs to be preserved, and it needs to have public access so that we can actually see all this stuff. We're going to take our first break here in the open hour. The show continues on the other side of it. There are a couple of lines open if you want to get in. 902-405-6000 is the number. The Midweek Meltdown continues right after the break. All right, welcome back to the Todd Veinotte Show. It's the Midweek Meltdown, your chance to talk about whatever it is on your mind. 902-405-6000. That's 902-405-6000. To the phones, we welcome John to the show. John, how are you?
Hey, I'm good. How are you doing?
Good. What's on your mind?
Oh, I thought I'd call in and speak to your question about the working from home orders.
Sure.
Well, I mean, I certainly think that the onus should be on the companies requiring people to come back to justify why they need to be there. It shouldn't be that, if you want to work from home, you need to justify that. I think any job that can be done from home should be done from home because it's just win-win for everybody. There's fewer cars on the road. There's more empty space downtown that you could rent out for residential use. And a lot of workers don't get paid for their commutes. So there's wage theft happening here. People who are driving an hour or more each way to work aren't getting paid. And if you can work from home, that is taken away. So I think anyone who wants their employees to come back should provide justification and specific reasons why it's essential, and otherwise they should be allowed to continue working from home.
John, what do you say to the people that will argue, well, that before the pandemic we worked from the office and that's the way it was?
Well, I mean, things changed a lot. The pandemic kind of revealed a lot of our blind spots in society in terms of public health and overall social organization. And if something works well to treat one problem, odds are it's going to work well to treat a lot of other problems too. Like in the early days of the pandemic, when there was a massive lockdown and people were staying home and shipping had ground to a halt, you saw massive reductions in greenhouse emissions and pollution. And I think we should have really leaned into that as a globe, as a human society. We should have tried to keep up that momentum and tried to cut back on our extraneous travel, on our extraneous shipping, all of these things which we don't really need to be doing, that could have made the world a healthier and more like humane place. But instead there was this real push to pretend it never happened and get back to normal, and I think that was a big mistake.
John, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I assume you work from home.
I don't. No, I work from, I'm on my way home right now. I was just driving into Halifax for work. So I have to be in physical location. But if I didn't have to be, I certainly wouldn't want to be. And because I do have to be on the road, I resent the roads being clogged up with people who don't need to be there.
Understood. John, great call. Appreciate it, sir.
Appreciate you. Thanks very much.
Take care. 902-405-6000. It's 902-405-6000. Interesting. You normally would think that somebody that had that opinion was already doing it, but this our last caller, John, isn't. He's working at the office. So interesting thoughts. It's always been a good discussion, and I'm interested in what you think about it. Should we mandate people back to work if they're working from home? Again, I'm at a loss because I've worked at the office from day one. I've never worked from home, and I hear the arguments that it's efficient. It's efficient. There's a lack of vehicles on the road. All of the things John said, but on the other side of it, I also hear the arguments. Well, it's inefficient. There's lack of human contact. There's Zooms and Teams meetings are okay, but they're not the same as having human contact and having people working together on various projects and so on and so forth. There's an argument on both sides. I'm curious where you fall on it. 902-405-6000, 902-405-6000. Let's welcome Albert to the program. Albert, how are you?
Not too bad, and yourself?
I'm good. What's on your mind?
I think working from home is good, but I know 3 or 4 people. Now, you tell me if this is doing the job properly. They're in the gym every morning because I go to the gym every day, and they're there, and they're working a little bit on their telephone, on their cell phone, and then they go hang up, then they go back to working out in the gym. That's a great life. How are they communicating with anybody that they have to, let's say the workers or the boss at work, if they're not in the office? Now, I can see where it would be proper for these people to stay home some days of the week, which would help traffic control and everything else. But I don't think it's right that these people should be getting paid, and here they are in the gym every day working from their phone. I don't know how they do it from their phone because I don't have nothing. My knowledge of technology is zero. And so I don't know how they're really doing an efficient job for the company working at the gym on the telephone. What do you think of that?
Well, my question is, if they're not doing their job correctly and they're not being able to communicate with their boss or not being able to be efficient and are still at the gym, then they probably would have lost their job, right? If they're able to do it, then why shouldn't they?
Well, I guess if they're able to do it, and they're doing it, I guess it's okay. But to me, I can't understand how not having communication with the other people that they did work with in the office and things that come up. Well, how do they get in touch with each other? Have to phone them up and they can't get through to them or anything? I don't know. I want to mention one other thing.
Sure, quickly.
You were talking to somebody earlier about the increases that are coming in water and electric rates.
You're correct. Yep.
And then you talked to this one guy that has to do with the people that are going to be involved with this increase in the light bill and the water bill that have apartment buildings.
Yes, a landlord.
Well, that doesn't affect the big landlords. Number one is they can write the whole bill off every year. Every cent that they spend on light bill and on water bill. And when it comes to the washing machines that they operate in there, look at the amount of money that people have to put in those machines to wash their clothes and to dry them. One other thing I want to mention to you is I can tell you one thing, that a lot of people that have apartment buildings that own them, that money that goes into these washing machines, that's not being claimed by them through the income tax. That goes right into their pocket. So don't tell me that these people have to increase rent because of water bill and light bill when they can write it off, and a lot of times a lot of the money is going into their pocket without paying any income tax. That's just what I know for a fact for this as is happening. So what do you think of that?
Well, it's I didn't know you could write it off, Albert. I appreciate the call, sir. Have a good one. 902-405-6000. I didn't know, and maybe somebody can enlighten me. Can you write it off? Is it a business expense? Is paying the water as a landlord? Do you get a tax incentive for that? I don't know what the answer is. Somebody out there certainly does. 902-405-6000. Let's grab one more call before the break. We welcome James to the program. James, how are you?
Hi, fine. Thanks very much.
What's on your mind?
Possibly two topics, Nova Scotia Power and the strong mayor, but if there's not enough time, I'll stick to Nova Scotia Power. The magic of compound interest.
Right.
Your caller was right. And 8.368 is a mouthful. Just use 8.4. That's accurate when you round appropriately.
Okay.
So it's not 8.2, it's 8.4. I don't know whether that really makes it that much worse.
Still sucks. No matter how you round it up, it still sucks.
I tend to agree. And in my humble opinion, I don't think this is an opinion, this is quote fact. Nova Scotia Power has sources of revenue other than a rate increase. They could reduce dividends. In other words, the shareholders will bear at least some of the burden to bring 8.4 down to whatever. And that's, I think, realistic because they have this crazy guaranteed 9% rate of return and they pay significant dividends. So the shareholders, it's a private company, the shareholders could bear some of the burden. And Nova Scotia Power, of course, has significant ability to borrow on the open markets. So they could issue some bonds and then they're on the hook over the years to repay the bonds, but they don't, in other words, for at least the time period of the bond, we'll say 25 years, reduced burden on residents, power users.
But James, at the end of the day, why would they, right? I mean, why would they go through that? Why would they take the risk? Why would they lower their dividends when they can just crank up the rates?
Well, I'm so glad you asked that question. I think we need, and the Premier has expressed concern. I forget that the exact language he used. Yep. They're essentially a creature of the province, even though they're private. The government could legislate. They could step in and make a lot of this stuff happen. I'm not an expert, but they're different than, I don't know, the corner store. They're subject to significant public control. Yes, there's the Energy Board, and that's where their next stop is. But it sounds to me as if the government may step in here. The Premier sounds quite concerned, to use a mild word, about this situation. So I would say stay tuned, and I encourage the government to exercise all their options to reduce this 8.4% rate increase.
James, up against the break, sir. Appreciate it. Have a fantastic day.
Great. Thanks very much.
902-405-6000. It's 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-825. The Mid-Week Meltdown after the break. right, rolling on this edition of the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Aalders. The telephone number is 902-405-6000, 902-405-6000. The Mid-Week Meltdown continues. We will go right to the phones and welcome Nicole to the show. Nicole, how are you?
I'm well, Dan. How are you?
I'm good. What's on your mind today?
Oh, my goodness. Well, I guess I'm calling with the monthly reminder to remind everybody that residential ratepayers do not hold a contract with Nova Scotia Power.
Right.
But more broadly, when we're looking at rate increases or when we're looking at the cybersecurity issue, and I don't know if you've read Tim Bousquet of the Halifax Examiner, if you've read his recent article on the investigation into Nova Scotia Power, when it's pretty explosive for what they've been trying to do in terms of privacy and trying to keep everything behind closed doors. But when public hearings are required, you have the ability to apply with the UARB for something called intervener status.
Right.
And intervener status gives you the ability to attend a public hearing. So I've been trying to get into these meetings for a while, and I keep getting rejected because usually I want to argue the contract, and they always tell me that the contract has nothing to do with the issue, even though the only thing binding us to Nova Scotia Power is the contract that no one can produce. But specifically for cybersecurity, I've been looking into it, and I've been waiting for Nova Scotia Power or for the UARB to confirm whether or not they are still accepting people for intervener status. Because when you go look at the list of participants, you have lawyers for Nova Scotia Power, lawyers for the board, you have a consumer advocate, and I'm going to come back to that.
Right.
Small business advocates, Department of Energy, Efficiency One, everyone is an industry or a business or a law firm. Now, under Section 91 of the Public Utility Act, the board is required to appoint a consumer advocate for residential ratepayers. Now, here's the crux. The current consumer advocate listed is Pink Larkin, and they seem to be the constant advocate. But if you reach out to Pink Larkin, no one's responding. I'm a residential ratepayer. They're the consumer advocate. They're not responding to me. So I have an email out right now, which is still unanswered, to the UARB, specifically asking the roles and responsibilities of the consumer advocate. And the questions I've asked are, at present, the only party listed as representing residential ratepayers is the consumer advocate, who's appointed to the board under Section 91 of the Public Utility Act. Can you please clarify the scope of their responsibilities in this proceeding, including whether their mandate is intended to preclude or replace participation by individual residential ratepayers? Are they required to field questions and concerns from ratepayers directly, and what is their mandated response time? As a resident of Nova Scotia and a ratepayer subject to regulatory framework, I want to understand whether my concerns can be brought forward directly or whether they are deemed to fall solely under the consumer advocate. Without clear guidance, it may appear that the residential consumers are represented exclusively through a board-appointed advocate, which raises questions about the independence and conflict of interest when individual voices are absent from the list of interveners. So we have an issue, again, where there's so much bureaucratic red tape that no one can actually reach this entity. And I did hear like an earlier conversation where there's discussions about Premier Tim Houston stepping in.
Yep.
I'd like to remind everyone the legislature has no bearing on the UARB. The legislature has no bearing on private corporations like Nova Scotia Power. That must fall to the UARB. So Premier Tim Houston can't do anything. Now, President Tim Houston of the province of Nova Scotia, in his capacity in Executive Council, can. So I think we have to be very careful with our language about who we're asking to do what, because Tim Houston knows he wears two hats, but most people don't. So if we're waiting for Premier Tim Houston to step in, I don't think that's going to happen. President Tim Houston? Absolutely.
Nicole, maybe I misunderstood, but you've reached out to the consumer advocate and have not received any kind of response?
Nothing. So, and I know they got my email because I got an out of office reply. Now, there's
Right.
2 lawyers and 2 assistants that I sent it to. So one lawyer, he's on vacation, cool. The other one, I don't know where he is. The assistants, I don't know where they are. And the UARB, where are they? They haven't responded either.
Not very good at
So
that. From experience, I can tell you that the UARB is not very good at that.
You know what? I usually get a response from them. And oddly enough, I have a notice of liability that I sent to the Executive Council that the UARB was copied on. And they replied to me immediately because they actually took that 5-page notice and it forms the first 5 pages of the letter of comment of the cybersecurity investigation. So I thought that was interesting because they decided to cover their butts on that really quickly. And it's specifically about this contract issue because as far as I can determine, if you do not have a contract with Nova Scotia Power, which no one can produce, if you've not agreed to the terms and conditions in the privacy policy, which no one can produce, the bigger question for me is not whether or not the cybersecurity was breached. We know that it was. It's whether or not Nova Scotia Power had the legal authority to be holding the information that was breached in the first place. And that comes down to the contract. So again, friendly monthly reminder that unless you can secure a copy of your residential rate contract with Nova Scotia Power, you can assume you don't have one.
Nicole, keep up the good work.
I will. Thank you, Dan.
Have a great day. 902-405-6000. It always amazes me that people will pick up the ball, and when they want an answer, and they will go with it. Nicole's called the show many times before, and she is keeping these groups' feet to the fire. Obviously has some sort of higher education than I when it comes to these kind of things. So I wish her the very best, and I hope that she calls us and keeps us updated. What is the biggest concern for me is that there is a consumer advocate out there who was listed as one of the people that signed off on this 8.3 and change increase that doesn't respond. So are they representing consumers? I think that's a fair question. 902-405-6000, 902-405-6000. Let's welcome Mark to the program. Mark, how are you?
I'm good, Dan. Thanks for taking my call. I appreciate it. Sure. So I just wanted to circle back to the return to the office issue discussion. My take on that is, well, first of all, I'm very strongly for people going to the office, getting more done, depending on the type of work. I know for my job, like in an administrative position, just being around people and also, decision makers and being able to have that human contact, I think is invaluable. I think that is why a lot of employers did. I know that's why a lot of them pushed for it. You don't get that on Zoom meetings, Teams meetings, whatever. You just, there's something to be said about just being able to walk by, a cubicle, an office, whatever. You just don't get the same thing for that. Also, and I don't know if you mentioned it because I didn't catch the beginning of the program, but just looking at a CBC article from regarding sick days. So Treasury Board of Canada just released statistics recently. I'll be really quick on this. So when the pandemic had most office employees working entirely remotely, average number of sick days was public service was 5.9, grew to 8.1, 2021, 22, 8.8, and 2022, 23, and then 9.2. So it's consistently going up. Okay. So maybe it's the cynic in me, but I think the primary reason for that was when people were working from home, you can just, call in sick. You could call in sick more. If you didn't have in-person meetings or whatever. So that's my take on that. Basically, I think private employers should be able to do whatever they want, obviously. But I think if taxpayers are paying your salary, we expect, I think the majority of Canadians, I know I do, I expect you to be at work most of the time. So that's it. And I just wanted to finish up with one thing, if that's okay.
Sure, quickly. Yeah,
very, very quick. One of my regrets is that I didn't go to law school. I didn't take the LSATs, didn't even try. But I just I feel like the next best thing is every time Nicole calls in, I feel like I'm getting an education, right? And I really appreciate it.
So do
She's very impressive. And I don't know her. I've never met her. I don't know who she is.
Nor do I. But she does, and she's obviously very well versed in what she speaks.
Absolutely. All right. Thanks so much, and have a great day, Dan.
Have a good one, Mark. One of the comments from Mark's comments that I have is the walking by the cubicle thing, and he explained it that, you know, you can just walk into somebody's office and get a quick answer, and I don't think anybody's going to argue that point. But on the other side of that equation, people will also say that there's an awful lot of distraction when you're in the office, and people walk into your office and with less than work-related questions, I will say, hey, did you see the Jays game last night? You know, the water cooler stuff. I think that that's important because I think that builds a camaraderie within your team. And typing in a chat doesn't do it for me. And the thing about Zoom meetings and Teams meetings that drives me bonkers is when you have a Zoom meeting, particularly when it's a one-on-one. Now, if it's a group thing, it's bad enough. But when it's a one-on-one and you're looking at the screen and the other person's looking back at you, but their eyes are somewhere else because they're doing something else when they're talking to you, drives me bonkers. Mid-Week Meltdown continues after the break. You're listening to the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Aalders. We are back in minutes. I've often said that you know, we need to have some kind of camera, and whenever I say this, Vanessa just gets angry. Some kind of camera in here with the what happens when we're in the breaks, and we were just having a discussion about what we're talking about here on the program today, and that's you know, working from home. And Vanessa just asked me straight out. She says, Dan, if you had the opportunity, would you work from home? And I had to think about it for a minute, but I think, and this is just me, but I think that I'm a kind of person that needs to have separation between work and home, and because people around here tell you that I work a little too much. So I would, Vanessa's shaking her head, yes. I would work 12, 13, 14, 15 hours a day just because it was there, right? Whereas if I have to get in the vehicle, and I, to be honest, and I'd be lying if I said I didn't, I can work from home on the back end of things that we do here on the show every day. But I think having that separation, at least for me, helps, because when I drive home for the day, then my focus kind of shifts. My brain shuts off. Vanessa's putting her headphones on. That can only mean one thing. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Vanessa Vandenez to the Todd Veinotte Show.
Thank you. I was just going to say it's a huge distraction to be at home, in my opinion, because I have so many other things that I'm looking around going, oh, I could do that right now.
Right.
I have 15 minutes, and then 15 minutes turns into 30, and then you get distracted.
Right.
But then the same thing goes with, you know, working from home emails. And then you're, watching TV, and all of a sudden you get that ping, and you go, oh, I should answer that.
You and I answer emails during our off time all the time, right?
Oh,
That's what we do.
I try to keep it to maybe about 10 minutes tops, but yeah, when I'm at home, it's definitely separation.
You have a massively demanding boss.
Yes, I do. But you said that, not me.
902-405-6000, 902-405-6000. Let's welcome Danny to the program. Danny, how are you?
Good. How you doing?
Good. What's on your mind?
Good. I guess for me, it would be like before the pandemic, when you went to look for a job and it wasn't an office, you knew you were going to work in an office.
Right.
So, you know, whether or not you got paid to go to work or you paid to drive back home, this was part of your job. I mean, you're supposed to be to work at 9, and you drive to work and you work at 9. If you started with a company and that was the deal, then that's the deal. Right. I mean, yeah, we had the pandemic. Pandemic's over. Time to go back to work. Now, there's two things. I mean, you can go back to work and you can talk to your boss and you can figure out whether or not you should be able to work from home, or you can quit that job and you can go get another job that lets you work from home. But, I mean, there's all kinds of people. There's not just office people. There's all kinds of people of us at work that have to go to work every day that don't get to work from home.
Right.
And it's never been an issue. I mean, it's only been an issue since pandemic, when people started to realize, well, I'm getting more money because now I don't have to pay a babysitter. When the kids are sick, I stay home with the kids. So, and I don't have to pay for gas to go to work. So, but they don't ask for a decrease in their payment, in their salary.
Right.
But yet, all of these things are kind of included in your wage when you get hired. Like, they know you have to drive to work. They know you got to make a living. So that's all in your salary.
Fair points, Danny. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
902-405-6000. It's 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. I can see both of it, and I really don't like to be just sit in the middle, but I can see both sides of it. I really can. I can see that, like Danny said, you did it before. Why, that's your salary basis and all these things that I think it was Mark raised, and you don't get paid to drive to work, get all this stuff. But I can also see the other side of it that, and speaking from experience, workplaces can be very distracting, right? They can be with the social aspect, which I think is important. And I've said that before. But, I use myself as an example. My office door is always open. People come in, they ask me questions. Hey, I heard this caller on the show today, or hey, did you see this, and whatever else, and it distracts me from doing what I do. That being said, when you work from home, there's other distractions, right? There's the dog, there's the kids, there's supper, there's all of that other stuff. So I really can see both sides of this. Let's welcome Shelley to the program. Shelley, how are you?
I'm pretty good, thank you. I have two comments to make regarding this working from home.
Sure.
I personally myself, I wouldn't want it. The one thing I really enjoyed about working was I liked going in with my coworkers and meeting with my coworkers.
Yeah,
and
me too.
Talking with
Absolutely.
That's what I would miss more than anything. But there's two things regarding this working from home. In the last couple of years, how many times have we heard, I was on the line to Revenue Canada for 6 hours. I was trying to get a hold of Service Canada, or Revenue Canada, for 5 hours. We've been hearing this for the last couple of years or more, the long wait times regarding OAS and CBP and pension. Well, you know what I'm talking about, right?
Absolutely.
I wonder how much of an effect of this working from home has on that buildup of phone call waiting.
Oh, I think it would be a fair point. Without knowing, it's tough to say if they've reduced the number of people that work there and they're doing other jobs. I don't know what the answer is.
Well, when you're working from home, you can pretty much do anything with your phone. Put it on hold, put it on bass, put it on smooth, whatever.
But I think they can monitor that stuff. I think particularly with the call centers, right? So I would be shocked if that was the main reason.
Yeah, but isn't it funny that this long wait time has only occurred over the last 3 or 4 years?
Well, it's a fair point, Shelley. It really is.
Yeah, and the other point is, you call somebody, and I've heard this many times. I've called somebody, and I could hear the dog barking. I could hear the kids in the background.
Right.
And then some people would call. This guy was at a garage getting his car repaired because it came over the loudspeaker. He knew where he was getting his car repaired. Now, that last gentleman called there back about 4 or 5 calls ago about the man being on the bike, I think, at the workout station, at the gym.
Oh, the gym, yeah.
Well, now, you just imagine you call somebody regarding your pension. It's CPP, OAS, or whatever, and it's a very intricate call. And you've got somebody at the gym on a bike. How much attention do you think he's paying to your pension?
Well, I can't walk and chew gum, so I don't know how they would be able to do any of that.
Well, there you go. That's what's happening. You call anytime you call the government, it's not a friendly call. It's always a business call.
Right.
It's always regarding something. And every person you get working from home is doing something else. They're watching the kids. They're eating dinner. They're exercising. God knows what. They cannot concentrate fully on what you're asking. That's the problem I have with this working from home. I don't think you get the attention you should be getting. So I don't agree with working from home anymore.
Shelley, appreciate it.
Thank you.
And I appreciate each and every one of you for picking up the numbers and dialing, or the phone and dialing the numbers. Come on, Dan, and joining the program, sharing your thoughts. My apologies to those that I didn't get to today. Best to call early. That way you avoid disappointment. Tomorrow, we've got a really busy show planned for you. It is back to school day tomorrow. So if you're out driving around, heading to work tomorrow, if you're going to the office, be mindful. There's going to be the big yellow buses out there. There's going to be lots of kids on their first days, some going to new schools, some going to new routes to school. So just be extra careful out there tomorrow. We don't want any tragedies. We're going to have a visit from HRP. Constable Martin Cromwell will be here to tell us a little bit about what HRP plans to do as we get back into the swing of things. We're going to continue our look at the power rate situation. The leader of the NDP, Claudia Chender, will be joining us on the program, and hopefully she'll be giving us a little bit more clarification. And we will also look at a report here on the show about revealing that Nova Scotia has some of the highest child poverty rates in the country. All that, and of course, the open hour and more. Thank you very much to Vanessa Vandenez on the other side of the glass, who does a fantastic job and every once in a while jumps on the air and keeps me in line, which is not easy to do. And yes, her boss is very demanding. Thank you to all of our guests for picking up the phone and joining the show and imparting us with their knowledge. It makes my day when you do that. And I said it before and I will say it again. Thank you to each and every one of you who takes time out of your busy days and joins the open hour and joins our conversation. You really, really make my day when you do it, and I learn so much from this open hour each and every day. Until then, everybody, it's going to be another sunny day tomorrow. Make sure you watch out for those kids on the road. Be well, and remember, be kind to one another.